Welcome everyone once again to another Tuesday of Political Paradigm. I am Terry Ikumi. My guest is the former Vice Chancellor of the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. He is also the convener of the Northern Elders Forum. My guest is Professor Ango Abdullahi. Prof, welcome to Political Paradigm.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's an honor.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, thank you.
I think I'll just start off by condoling with you on the death of the former convener, Paul Onongo, and probably ask you to say a word or two about him and what his death means to the Northern Elders Forum.
Well, on Paul Onongo and from me is a long story. We first met in 1954 when we were both young students. He a student in Government College Kefi, and I a student in Bariwa College Zaria. On this side of the Northern Elders Forum, Paul Onongo was very clear about the mission and objectives of the Northern Elders Forum. The Northern Elders Forum had always been focused. First, Nigeria as a country, but believing that Nigeria has various diversities, and these diversities reflect in so many ways in various groups. Northern Elders Forum, ACL, Fenefere, Pandev, whatever. And these are, of course, groups that are social, but essentially politically sensitive to a lot of things that are taking place in the country. And this is how we carried on. And Paul Onongo, even though he stepped down on reason largely of himself, remained a very, very active member of the Northern Elders Forum, a guide. Paul Onongo in the North, yes, his mentor, his leader, J.S. Tarka, who is also a chief from Benue, work together. And at any time there's something that perhaps is not going right, either within the North itself, they will speak about it. But if there is something also that is unfairly, focused on the North, they also talk about it and protect the interests of the North. So that's how we lived with Paul. And I, as a personal friend of almost 70 years, it's a major personal loss to me. And I suppose it is just as much a big loss for the Northern Elders Forum. And I think more importantly, looking at the past services of Paul Onongo, it's a major loss to the nation.
Prof, if I may come in here, clearly you share a very close relationship with this man. He is not just anybody to you, and you've also talked about the sort of interest you both shared towards a better Nigeria or an improved Nigeria. And I'd like to hear from you. You have worked with past political leaders and presidents. You share closeness with a lot of them. And listening to you, I could just tell that you had an idea of what you thought that the country would be following the growth that you expected to happen. So let me ask you this question, Prof. What sort of progress do you think that we've made as a country, considering you and the kind of position you've occupied in the past and the kinds of conversations you've had in the past for a better Nigeria? What sort of progress would you say we've made as a country?
The common cliche of the Sadona is that, yes, we are diverse and to a large extent different in our ways, in terms of our history, our culture, our religion, or whatever. But let's recognize those. Let's understand them. Let's understand our differences. But once we understand our differences, we should be able to then work together for the common good of the country. And this is why they succeeded. First, in fighting for independence for the country together. They may have some differences in terms of speed with which this should be done. But at the end of the day, they agreed, regardless of these historical backgrounds that they were operating in, and succeeded. Post-independence, they did the same thing. And this is why, very much to my mind, because when we had independence, I know I was in university, was old enough to know exactly what was happening, especially when they talked to us from time to time. They would come from Lagos, from wherever, and address students, UI, so please quickly finish your studies and come and run this country. The expatriates will soon leave and you will take over. So you could see this commitment to the development of their children, but development based on the future of the country, that these children should be educated, should be trained, should be disciplined in order to effectively take over the leadership of the country so that the country can move forward as quickly as possible. Most people who are especially friends of Nigeria had always predicted that Nigeria will move fast after independence. Soon, not so many years, soon, they were not able to say exactly whether it's 5, 10, 15 years, but they said soon Nigeria will be such a powerful country on the continent of Africa because it has all the indicators, all the potentials that are visible in human, in material resources and so on. And this is the prediction. So if you look at all that against the background of 62 years since independence and where we are today, certainly I don't think I'm wrong when I say this development is unsatisfactory.
You know, Prof, while I ask where we may have gone wrong, I recall that you have clearly stated that one of our problems in this country is the presidential system of government which we run. And you say that the parliamentary system would be more favorable to us. Could you expatiate on that?
Yes, very easy, because I mean, if you go back to our heritage from Britain, we inherited a constitution based on a federal system and a political system that was parliamentary. Meaning here that for anybody who perhaps aspires to be a member of parliament, naturally he has to be elected from a constituency. And it is after his election from a constituency he comes to parliament. And perhaps the majority party or a coalition of parties would agree that a government should be formed. And any person that becomes a minister must have been somebody who has been actually elected from a base, from a constituency. So from that point on, the person who becomes whatever ministry he is assigned to knows that he's accountable to people from where he was elected. He will be accountable to the person who nominated him, but most importantly, accountable to the parliament or to the system that brought him as a minister. But this is not all now. You can have anybody who, because his close relationship with the governor, he becomes a commissioner. Because of a close relationship with the powers that be at the highest level of government, he becomes a minister without even knowing his village, He doesn't know his village, but there he is. But the issue here, automatically it means that accountability is lost from grassroots to the larger society, because the larger society has not been really involved in determining the suitability or otherwise of the person that has been assigned to run a particular job. So that's a problem with the presidential system that we are having now. And the other problem that is related to this particular issue of presidential system is cost. This is a system that is by its very nature, it's expensive. Even the Americans tell themselves that if you have no money, you have no business being in politics in the United States. Perhaps you can vote, but you cannot be actively involved, particularly seeking for elective office, if you have no money. I was just looking at a by-election recently, senatorial by-election that was held between, I think, a member of Republican and Democratic Party. Just for adverts for the by-election, runoff election, $81 million was spent on advertorials for this election. And this is what is happening even here. I saw a minister here on telly early last week. He said, we have money. We have money. We are going to win this election. We have money. A minister, a serving minister. Yeah. So you see, I think we have run into, we ran in a rush and made a mistake because we used the parliamentary system for only 5 years. And then we crashed it. And now we have been with the presidential system for 24 years. And things are not getting better. In fact, things have gotten worse than what they were during the parliamentary arrangement. We had only 3 regions that were functioning. And each region, in fact, had its own constitution. The northern region has its constitution, western region constitution, and so on. They had their judiciary, they had their police, they had virtually everything that devolved from a federal constitution that lives with the federal government with a coordinating role, more or less. Issues like currency, issues like foreign policy, and so on. But the actual nitty-gritty of development were left to the regions, and it was working. We all were products of that. If you look at the current generation of people who are 60, 70, 80 years, we're all products of that effort. Free education in Western Nigeria, free education for us here in the north, free elementary, secondary, and so on. But see what is happening now. There are 15 million children out of school now. So things are just not right because the system we are running is not accountable.
But Prof, there are those who say that reworking the Constitution could be a solution. Also, if you look at the reports of the 2014 Confirm and Nasir Arafat report, it was more about this restructuring that you speak against and reworking the Constitution. How do you react to that?
Well, I was privileged to have attended 3 constitutional conferences. 87, 95, Abacha, Political Reform Conference of Obasanjo. I declined attending the national so-called conference that was organized. You could see some of the things that were behind it. And even in these constitutional conferences, you always find that it is not the document. There's enough in the document for us to function effectively and successfully. but the operators. When the operators are coming out of a system, and this is where again my quarrel starts, the system does not allow for credible people to emerge to run this country. We have talked about you can't be an active, honest politician serving your people, serving your constituency if you have no money. And so the politics is for those with money. And especially now, so if you are spending money in politics, it means that this is not charity, it's an investment that you recover the principles and perhaps look for profit. And this is what is happening to us today. And the people you hear are billionaires or multimillionaires and so on, are people that cannot show you a factory where they are productive. There are people that will not show you a farm like I have that is productive or is providing employment and so on. And money is either hidden in wherever it is in the country or is taken outside the country, loaded outside the country for other people to benefit. So you see, the operators of constitution are vital. But then how do you really bring them out? So you must have a system that will make it possible for good people to come out and for ordinary people to recognize good people who would really provide services for the benefit of the country.
All right, Prof. Now that you talk about the country and its benefits, it's almost time for the 2023 general elections. We're just 2 months before then. And for many, in fact, for the entire country, it's an opportunity to make amends when necessary. What's your assessment of the state of the polity and also the level of preparedness of the electoral umpire with regards to a free, fair, and credible process?
Well, it's a very difficult question here, in the sense, given my own position, which I've just expressed, about emergence of operators. Once the system you operate does not allow the emergence of people that we know are credible, and we know they're there, but they can't offer their services because the system will not allow them to emerge.
Does this go to say that those who have emerged as candidates are not credible enough?
Well, it depends on the scale of credibility you're talking about. You can take each and every one of them and put them on a scale of history. And when you put them on a scale of history, you should be able to say, yes, this is what happened so and so, this is what happened so and so. But yes, I mean, it's not fair to say that they are not credible. They are credible in the system that they successfully mounted to arrive where we are today. So, if perhaps, hypothetically, if it was totally different arrangement, let's say, for example, the primaries that were held by both parties, or all the parties that I can see, particularly the major ones. How many delegates were there? 1 delegate per local government would decide who will be the president of the country on behalf of almost so many million people from that local government. And you look at how that person coming from that local government has come. Maybe it's close to the governor or close to the chairman of the party. And before his nomination to come to the convention, they must have also have agreed unconditionally that this is where your vote will go when we get to the convention. And this is what we saw, and this is what is true. So that gives you confidence that the emergence of whoever it is was based on the true wishes of the people. I participated in a transition program that allowed you to line up behind a candidate. Option A4. I contested election for the governorship of Kaduna State and won on the basis of option A4 from ward up. Line up behind your candidate. Let's see how popular he is or how popular others are. And this is how it worked, and far better than this system of selective arrangement of people who would give an assurance that they would do X, Y, Z, irrespective of whether it is right or wrong. In most cases, wrong. And this is why the system that has created the emergence of most of the people from House of Reps to Senate to governorship to even the presidential system has not been based on the true wishes of the electorate.
But what you're doing, Prof, is calling to question the Electoral Act, because their emergence was based on the new Electoral Act.
No, the Electoral Act itself, if it will not guarantee, if you look at the Electoral Act and it will not give you a guarantee that the person who is coming to the convention is coming on behalf of the people of his constituency, then something must be wrong. So I think that the Electoral Act itself is faulty in so many respects. And until we get back to the situation where people who eventually are elected to various positions are elected on the basis of the wishes of the people, then you will never get to the position where the people will interrogate them, will challenge them, and will ask them questions in terms of the responsibility. In most cases, the people will not bother because they know that they had no hand in getting them to where they were. And they have no response, no positive response to the people who even care to interrogate them, because they are not the ones who actually push them to the positions where they are. So this issue of responsibility and accountability has to be the basis on which we are going to move forward. Without that, it's going to be extremely difficult.
Prof, if you question the processes that have produced candidates at different levels, specifically the presidential candidates, does that go to say that come 2023, regardless of who emerges, we may not still get it right?
No, absolutely. I mean, if the question remains that the system that has brought X, Y, Z to where they are had not been itself credible, then this lack of credibility persists. And this is why you worry whether you eventually end up with a stable system that people are happy and feel that it is their own. Because the ownership has to be important. People must feel they are owners of whatever comes out of the political leadership, especially at the various executive levels and so on. They feel they are owners, they contributed to it. But this system has not given us that. We have just seen a rally. I have just seen a rally, where people have been paid 2,000 naira to attend the rally because the hall or the venue was empty and people were induced to go to the rally by being paid 2,000 naira. So you can imagine what will happen during the election. It's almost like saying that, yes, the best way is to perhaps, you might end up buying votes. And once this is catching on now.
Prof,
Vote buying is catching on. And once you are having this at the back of your mind, and people, the population is having this at the back of their minds, how do they respect the outcome of this kind of elections?
Prof, while you say that, there are those who believe that there's a certain level of awareness in the country now. And the country has gone away from two options for a presidential election, and we have more options now. There are those who would mention Peter Obi, there are those who would mention Kwankwaso, there are those who would mention Shawari, and others. We have at least 18 presidential candidates now. Even you have said that the country needs a technocrat in that position. So among these presidential candidates, because I know that you have singled out Tinubu and Atiku on certain occasions to say that they cannot fix this country, among the other candidates, do you not see anyone?
The system is still the problem. You have just mentioned that the country is talking about moving away from the type of political system that is throwing up leaders that have not performed and are not likely to perform under this arrangement. And they were even saying, for example, why can't we find good technocrats who have no particular allegiance to political parties? They may have to belong to political parties. But if I may chip in and say that we have refused to even accept independent candidates. Why not? Why can't you have an independent candidate where if I'm not satisfied with whatever other parties have presented to me for election, I should go to an independent candidate if I'm happy? Why have they refused to accept independent candidates and so on? I was the one who more or less encouraged Muhammad Hayatuddin. I'm sure you saw him as one of the people trying to catch the attention of Nigerians to give him a chance in the primary elections to emerge as a candidate. But he couldn't make a headway. He's a technocrat, a very competent one, a good economist, a good banker, a good executive planner. He was the general manager of NNDC, Northern Nigeria Development Corporation, and so on. Of course he could run this country. And if I were the one to select, if it's a selection process, I'll select him over all these people that we have as our candidates now. But the thing that you mentioned, there are others are likely the same sort of system that they are suffering from, because the Electoral Act and whatever they have to comply with are the ones that and in any case, again, this is a product of the fact that we have 18 presidential candidates. In 1959, I think there were about 50-something. I mean, the 2019 elections. The total votes the presidential got, other than the main parties, were less than 3 million. And this is likely to repeat itself even this time. But the thing here is that the manipulation that is going on at the Electoral Act level, as well as the party itself level, is responsible for having people desperately interested in politics, desperately interested wanting to serve, setting up these small parties. And these small parties, given the system that is working against them, will never make it forward.
Prof, if I heard you clearly, did you say that what happened in 2019 is likely to happen in 2023, where apart from the PDP and the APC, the rest of the political parties may not be able to get beyond 3 million votes cumulatively.
Yes.
This is beyond the popularity
More,
growth.
more or less.
No, this is despite the popularity growth of the Labour Party and the NNPP.
No, you see, the problem here is that if you look at the system, take away the political system itself, which is faulty, which I criticize the system, and then the social system. Sometimes they run at parallels. I'm sure you accept that people are concerned, rather than candidates concentrating debate on issues. They are concentrating debates on insults of each other, of denouncing whatever, and so on. So what is emerging now, in my estimate, is that the parties will remain symbols or platform for the law to take its course in terms of the electoral. But the other fault lines will play a major role in the outcome of the election. The other fault lines are ethnicity, religion now, and sectional interest. So that's true. I mean, when I say sectional, look at North and South. I'm sure you saw all these halu-balu and so on, where some section of the country would say, unless we get the president, the country should go to pieces, all go to pieces. You have people who will say, this ticket is so and so. And that is also religious. And you have all this together, and you find that it's not just the political parties and their manifestos. It is other factors that radiate into the social fabric of the country.
And I was going to ask you that because I know that you had stated a position about 6 months ago about some candidates. And I was going to ask you if you have had a change of heart now that manifestos are out and conversations have been held. But clearly, you really do not hold manifestos for anything. So let me ask you this question. You said that in 2023, the options would still be the PDP or the APC.
Oh, absolutely. That's the way things will go.
Regardless of the fact that you do not think that...
Regardless of whatever facts.
No, regardless of the fact that you do not think that either of them should win.
No, but I'm not... I won't vote.
I'm just saying that your position is that Nigerians should not vote for either the PDP or the APC.
No, I didn't say that.
But you had said that neither Atiku nor Tinubu...
But the Nigerians still brought Atiku and Tinubu. And therefore, Nigerians are going to vote one or the other in this election, regardless of what I feel or what I've said before or what anybody says. But if there is an election and votes will be counted on the number of votes that Tinubu got, for example, or what Atiku will get.
You don't think the Labour Party stands any chance in 2023?
No, Labour Party is a new innovation. And Nigerians Labour has always been with us in this country. And in fact, I have at some level some mistrust or distrust for Labour. It's an organization. Even the Labour is in different groups. You have this TUC, you have this, that, you have this, that, you have this. And many times Nigerian interest is at stake, or the Nigerian people's well-being is at stake, and the labor union or unions were supposed to be in the forefront of protecting this interest. But what have they done over the years? They had always gone eventually back to the source of power, and the leadership sold out in most cases the interests of workers. So I wouldn't take them as a major asset for a political victory in any election, because they are already scattered in their various ways and so on. So I don't see. I don't see.
Professor Abdullahi, in June this year, you granted an interview to the Vanguard. In that interview, you said you would rather tell Nigerians to brace up for the trouble ahead of them, as you put it, should they vote for Tinubu or...
No, I didn't say that.
I'm quoting what you said to
No,
the Vanguard.
but somebody must have misquoted me. Because I didn't say that Nigerians should...
brace up for the worst?
No, I mean, it's not whether it's Tinubu or should brace up for the system that had always been not in their interest. Because if you listen to the campaign in at least one of the parties or even the two, they said they are going to carry on where Buhari lives, where he left. So
that's not a good thing?
Well, you are suggesting that he left Nigerians in a very good state, in security, in economy, in whatever. And this is the cry of most Nigerians: security, economy, gari, doya, and so on. And somebody is saying that, yes, we are going to carry on these policies. And so that's, if I say people should brace up, it means that if this policy is going to be continued, then it means that people should continue to brace up for what they are already into.
But Prof, if I may come in here, you seem to be more concerned about the policies of this administration. You don't seem to think that it's the president's fault. And I say that because in 2017, you said the problem was more about the people the president had hired at the time. In fact, if I quote you on that, you said he's a good man, no doubt, but he got it wrong in not one single person in this country can talk about the number of competent hands he has in government.
Exactly. I was one of those who thought that he was going to make a change. He was going to make a difference as president of this country. In fact, I worked against Jonathan, if I may say so, because my assessment and the assessment of people like me was that he wasn't doing well enough, and therefore somebody else. Even at that point, we didn't say exactly who, but it was after the party. I mean, the PDP had adopted Jonathan for 2015 election, and we were waiting for the other parties to nominate or to identify their own candidate. We didn't know. Throughout the period, I was the spokesman of the Northern Elders Forum. We never mentioned Buhari as our target. We are just hoping that somebody competent enough would emerge from the primaries that remained at that time. And when the primaries finally concluded that it was Buhari that was nominated to contest the election, of course, since we have already pronounced that, yes, we work for the new whatever, and we did. And eventually Buhari won the election. And when you refer to an interview, which I granted, that
assembled the wrong
Buhari
team.
had a chance to turn things around, because there was a lot of goodwill that could have made him to succeed as president. Because what is required, no president alone, no genius alone can run a country like Nigeria, or even smaller than Nigeria, alone. You have to run it together with other hands that are committed and are competent. And at some point, over some time, when we saw things were not going right, I granted this particular interview. I said that even if Buhari came with all the goodwill that he could do something good, he ended up selecting people who are not good enough to do the job that he was asked to do. And thank God, eventually we were vindicated.
But it's 5 years since you granted that interview.
Yes.
And at the time, you had raised concerns about the people, the team, a wrong team to implement his goodwill and policies. 5 years down the line, did he make any improvement? Did he adjust his position?
No, if he had, things would have improved in the last 5 years, but they did not. Have they? They have not. They have not.
So it is
the security, in fact, got worse. The economy, Naira now is, $1 is almost 900 Naira now, and so on. I couldn't have imagined that in 1986, as a vice chancellor traveling outside the country, I wanted foreign exchange. I called my banker, said I want traveler's checks. Said yes, send your check, sir. And I did. 1 Naira equivalent to $1.40. 1 Naira was equivalent to $1.40 in 1986. 1 Naira equivalent to $1.1986. 1 Naira equivalent to $1.40. 1 Naira 20 kobo was equivalent to £1 sterling. Living today, I can't imagine for my life what could have happened. That if I want $1, I have to cough out 900 Naira. If I want £1 sterling, I have to cough out 1,000 Naira. How? What happened? Of course, this is a cumulative effect. Of course, it started, if you like, from the early part of devaluation, but this continued to deteriorate under different regimes that we have had. And I remember during the campaign, I think it's 2015 or so, Buhari said that he was hoping that the Naira would pick up and it will fetch $1 at not more than 50 or 60 or 70 Naira to $1. Why is it now? Petrol, 50 Naira to a liter. Where are we now? I'm sure you drove here, perhaps you paid for petrol for 240 Naira a liter, and so on. So these are the things. And even in those years, perhaps could sleep with my 2 eyes closed in terms of security. Right now, as I speak to you, some members of my family are with bandits. Right now, as I speak to you. My son, who spent 107 days with them, fortunately is now back, and so on. But this is throughout. I had a friend here who said this morning that he had one pastor was kidnapped from their church, and they were asking for 50 million. So you see, how can you say that somebody who is coming in 2023 and saying that these policies will be sustained, and I shouldn't say that Nigeria should brace up for this? And this is reality on ground.
So you say that anyone who says that he will continue from where this government left off should not be voted for?
Certainly not. Certainly not.
Prof, let's go into the politics of things now. I recall that you've been vocal about the Muslim ticket of the APC. You're a Muslim, you're a northern leader. And you described the Muslim ticket as, if I may put it in your own words, crudest and most unproductive. You even went further to say that it's designed to cause a separation from Christians and Muslims. Now, fast forward to months after that statement, you find that there is some level of division in the north amongst the Christians and the Muslims. You find that the Christians have decided that they would not support that ticket and they would rather go, some have gone in the direction of Atiku, others have gone in the direction of Peter Obi. What concerns do you have that this could have on northern politics, or in fact the unity in the north?
Well, if I may take you back a little on this. I said a few moments ago that the elections that will be coming in 2023 are not likely to be based on issues. They are likely to be more or less on these three fault lines that I mentioned: ethnicity, religion, and sections. In this case, for example, North and South. If it was political, 17 governors in the South sat down from different political parties and made a declaration that the president must move down to the South. It couldn't be based on politics. It has to be based on other consideration.
They said fairness. They said fairness.
Meaning what? Meaning what in a democracy? Fairness means that you are given a chance, like you and me giving a chance to vote or be voted for. And this is what our laws say. The Constitution of this country does not say you are going to be voted on the basis of fairness or unfairness. The Constitution of the country says that you vote for the candidate based on what you think of the candidate in terms of what you think he's going to do for the country or for you as a citizen. This is what our law says. So for somebody to say fairness, I think is just being rhetorical. When you are talking about this issue of religion, tickets, Muslim, Christian, the North can defend itself on this, since I'm convener of the Northern Elders Forum. The North, if you are talking about section, the North picked up Abiola. Let's start, yes, Abiola voted for him. In fact, it was in my house that his election was arranged against my younger brother, Tofa. We thought he could do it, and we supported it. It is the North or Northern establishment that decided that Obasanjo should be presented as a candidate. I sat with him when he was declaring, facing you journalists in Ottawa. I was sitting with him and his wife. He suffered all sorts of insults and so on from journalists and so on. Nobody will vote for him in the West because he's outside the Western establishment, outside the Western sentiments and so on. And after his interview, I took them aside, granted them an interview. I said, why do you think that Obasanjo doesn't deserve the votes of the Yorubas in the West? Said he doesn't look or sound or behave as one of us. I said, okay. I was a bit rude because they were very rude when they were attacking Obasanjo. In the course of attacking him, they attacked my parents, Northern Kada, and so on. I said, well, it looks to me that you don't like Obasanjo because he's associating with the North. You think that he's going to be a candidate of the North. You prefer a candidate of your own choice. And that was true. Somebody said, yes, yes, yes. I said, okay. Do you recall that our elder, whom I respected all my life, he was at one point my chancellor when I was VCIB chief of Olo. He tried to be the president of this country. And we Northerners didn't trust him. And he couldn't succeed. Up to his death, he couldn't succeed. Because of this perceived relationship, or poor relationship, social relationship, to some extent, other forms of relationship. He failed. This one that you say is not one of you because he associates with the North. We'll vote for him and he will be president. And we did. We voted for him. He became president. Of course, this is the sort of thing that is still on ground today. And very sad that 62 years we are still behaving in this manner. And we are expecting that some magic would come and salvage this situation. No magic will salvage it. Nigerians must sit down and look at themselves and tell themselves the hard truth, face to face, and say, yes, we have failed here, and that's correct. And this is the point.
Prof, we're almost out of time now, but I came here prepared to ask you about the stance of the Northern Elders Forum, because as you can see, the other regional bodies.
I wanted to avoid all that, but you have forced it now.
Well, we have to talk about that. I mean, you've already stated your position. Clearly, you haven't seen a candidate yet that you can endorse.
Well, we're working hard on that. We were involved in the organization that brought presidential candidates to Kaduna to come and speak to us. And we're still saying we're following their campaign, following in details their campaign. What they say, what they do not say, what they hide, what they try to bring out, and so on.
So the Northern Elders Forum will endorse a candidate
The process is on.
Will you endorse a candidate?
And I can assure you, within the next few weeks, we'll endorse a candidate.
Prof, just before we go, we have quite a number of new voters in 2023. You have stated clearly that there is almost a chance of not getting anything right in 2023 because of the processes that brought up the candidates.
That's right.
What's your advice to new voters as an elder statesman who's lived through the years, lived through the history of this country and seen elections and leaders, and one who many consider to have a high level of integrity? What's your advice to new voters as they go to the polls in 2023?
Well, the issues are simply, do the voters have enough information about who is who in terms of those who are looking for their votes to be president? The voters must have information. And this information is really lucky, generally lucky. What we have in most cases today, reading what one sees in the social media, is fake information and disinformation as misinformation coming from different camps, targeted at opposing camps. And that itself does not help voters, new or old, to really make up their minds objectively that they are getting the correct information in terms of who is that and who is not that. And that's why it is better for new voters or old voters and so on, if they really think that this election is an opportunity for us to find something better than what we have had before, they have to be a little more circumspect in terms of what information they will use to make up their minds. We are trying to chase this information and see in what way we can galvanize and use them and decide in which way, if we have to give an advice to somebody or some group of people, this is the advice we give.
Prof, I'd like to thank you very much for finding time to speak with us.
Thank you very much.
Professor Ango Abdullahi is the convener of the Northern Elders Forum. Thank you very much for your time. Remember to search for this episode on YouTube. Simply search Political Paradigm and others, or go to channelstv.com. Thanks once again for your time. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.